Welcome everybody to part 2 of our NextGen Workforce Series, Reskilling and Upskilling Strategies in the Digital Age. Now we have a very exciting session planned for you today as well. We are, as I mentioned, this is part 2, so part 1 and part 3 will be available for you guys via email following the webinar. Before we get started, I've got a couple of very quick things to get through. So first of all, this webinar is being recorded. So if you can't make it to the end, if you'd like to share it with one of your colleagues, we'll be sharing a recording link for you guys tomorrow. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. Second of all, there will be some polls, as I mentioned. So we encourage you to vote in those polls as we go along. We've only got a couple for today because we've got a really action-packed webinar planned for today. And last but not least, there is time for a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. So if you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to fire them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your panel in Zoom there. If you think of something after the webinar, if you just don't want to ask it live, that's not a problem. Send us an email at hello@devskiller.com. We'll be happy to get back to any questions you have for us throughout today's session. So now that those things are out of the way, I will start by introducing our first panelist, who's a regular now on DevSkiller webinars. So Jeff, can you give us a quick introduction about yourself, please?
No, absolutely. Thanks very much, Justin. By the way, my note taker, I think, has just invited itself to our session. If you feel, you feel the need to get rid of it,
I saw that come through. I saw that come through. Yeah, no worries.
AI, man, what is it like? But anyway, yeah, so thank you very much. So look, I'm Jeff Wellstead, an American living in London for the last 20 years. I basically am the CEO and founder of a company called Big Bear Partners. I do a lot of work now for the last 20 years here, focused on hyper-growth tech and biotech companies, basically building out their people strategies from scratch, which always ever kind of involve a lot of HR tech. HR tech has just taken off really in the last 5 years. It's exploded in the last 2 years, obviously with the advent of AI. I am really, really keenly interested and engaged with how these different platforms and tools are engaging AI to help lift and shift the HR function, if you will, from administration, compliance, and governance on up to a much more strategic level of impact. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yep, we've got plenty of topics to cover about AI today as well, so that will be coming later. Thanks for the introduction, Jeff. Arnold, let's go to you next. Can you give us a few words about yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Arnold Schoyum. I live in Berlin currently, and I'm working in the financial sector. In my current role, I focus on transformation and change, and I'm very excited to bring those expertise here today. I have over 10 years of banking experience, and my employment passport has seen 6 different countries so far. So you can tell I'm very excited about change and moving around. If I want to characterize my experiences, I could put into 3 different boxes. That's global network management, client management, and lately transformation and large-scale change projects. Outside work, I love my runs, and I'm passionate about nonverbal communication. Maybe that's in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well put. Thank you very much, Arnold. And last but not least, Gabriella, can you please give us a few words about yourself?
Hi, my name is Gabriella Keresztúri. I'm Hungarian, but I've been living in the UK since 2008, so quite a while. And I would label myself as a pracademic, which means I'm both a practitioner and an academic, focusing on the area of digital marketing with my teaching, but also on wider transformational projects in the industry. I worked with a range of different companies, from really small ones, self-employed, to quite large organizations on digital transformation projects in the past. And I wanted to say I'm representing my consultancy, YQNGK, here. My experience spans over both of these areas, that internet, because in academia, we're preparing students for the workplace in a much needed digital era at the moment. That's it about me. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. And thank you to all of you for those introductions. We're looking forward to tapping into your varied backgrounds as we get through the planned discussion today. What we'll do to start off the session, we're going to launch one of 2 polls, which is about the critical areas for reskilling and upskilling. So I am launching this poll, and it should appear on your screen right now. Question here is, what do you believe are the most critical areas for reskilling and upskilling in today's digital age? Data literacy, and data analytics, AI and machine learning, cybersecurity, cloud computing and DevOps, project management and agile methodologies, customer experience and service skills, or other. And I do believe I asked for panelists to vote as well. So I'm not sure if that is the case, but hopefully. So please fire in your votes, and I will end the poll momentarily because I can still see there's some more of you to vote. But it looks like it's all finished there. So I'm going to end the poll. Oh, one more came through. Okay, I'm going to end it right now. Share the results. It'll appear on your screen. So, what do you believe the most critical areas for reskilling and upskilling in today's digital age? 63% of the votes went to AI and machine learning. We got some votes also with 25% to cybersecurity and 13% to project management and agile methodologies. And I think that is a pretty good reflection of what we have in store for today's discussion. So without further ado, let's jump into our first question here, which is just generally about why the need for reskilling and upskilling. So I'll pass this one over to you, Gabriella. So what are the key drivers behind the need for reskilling and upskilling in today's digital economy?
Thank you very much for that. I think that there is pretty long list of drivers. However, I would like to stick to possibly the two key drivers. One of them being exactly what was just mentioned in the poll, development of new technologies, rapid development. I can tell you from my experience, I started working in digital marketing, what at the time was online marketing back in 2005. And my role as an online marketeer used to be extremely basic. Everything that I did was basic SEO, link exchanges, right? Emailing people, compiling lists manually. So it was a mammoth task. Ever since, just moving up to the era of social media, right? Things have changed so much that there are new tools coming out every year or so, and the existing tools are getting updated, upgraded. They get new features incorporated at all times. So even if you have learned, for example, how to work with a social media analytics tool, it is not enough. You need to continue this learning process because there are always new features that come into play. Not to mention new technologies, talking about AI, machine learning, which was the most popular option here. On the other hand side, we have the employer's requirements that are due to these technological advancements also changing. Employers need trained staff, and according to statistics, globally, 3 billion people will need to be retrained, reskilled, upskilled by 2030. There are several reports that talk about percentages of people that would need to be retrained on the job, and I believe that was somewhere around 5 million, according to a McKinsey report. So people need to, in the sense of employees, they need to update their skills to work with the new technologies that employers are introducing. And this is where probably the biggest challenges are, because employees need to deal with existing staff, but also look into hiring new staff. So again, one of the challenges or drivers would be the need to reconcile the two, and hire new staff with new skills would be quite costly. So it is less costly to retrain existing staff. And with that, I will just close agreement on the two key drivers.
Yeah, I got very interesting. Now I've got a statistic for myself in preparation for this webinar. I think you mentioned McKinsey, the 2030 statistic, right? I've got the Future of Jobs report by the World Economic Forum. 6 in 10 staff members will require training before 2027. So of the more than half of people currently working, we're expecting people need to be retrained or reskilled in some capacity. And I can speak firsthand, being in marketing myself. Everything you alluded to about tools changing, where HubSpot uses its Upskiller, this platform is constantly evolving, constantly changing, and there's so much learning that needs to happen within that to actually be able to get the full capacity out of using something like that. So very interesting points there. So thank you, Gabriella. We're going to move forward a little bit talking about skill gaps, because if we're talking about reskilling and upskilling, we need to identify the skill gaps that exist in order to reskill and upskill. So Jeff, I've got this question here for you. Question is, how can HR leaders effectively identify skill gaps within their organizations, particularly in industries undergoing rapid digital transformation?
Yeah, that's a brain full. Look, I mean, to be perfectly honest, a lot of the organizations I work with, in terms of trying to kind of upskill the HR teams and everything else, they often ask me, like, how is it we're meant to do this, right? Here's the challenge. Training and development has always ever been a murky world. It's always been a cost that the CFO has always ever been uncomfortable with, and has to be convinced about in terms of a business case. And oftentimes, the companies, the mid-market companies typically that I work with, oftentimes will come up with sort of a random, budget allotment per head and just say, well, it's going to be £2,000 or 2,000 euros per head per year. Spend it as you see fit, which frankly can end up being a huge waste of money. And quite frankly, without it being targeted and utilized in a particular way, it's just not sort of an efficient use, frankly, of funds or people's time for that matter. Look, this is all changing now, right? AI is going to change everything. And I know you hear that a lot. And I don't say that to fear monger. I say that because basically the half-life of skills now, traditional skills, especially in the tech world, but absolutely also in the other functions of business, have now started crumbling. Right? It used to be 2-3 years, basically, sometimes 5 years, before half of what you learned has become irrelevant and you need to kind of retrain. That is all coming down now to a matter of months, right? I kid you not. In terms of the incredible pace of AI tools, large language models coming out, now a huge focus on AI agents that are basically are pre-programmed to kind of work with your existing BI tools, and other process tools and so forth to actually automate process 24/7, 365. It's going to change sort of the face and nature of how it is we work. I think Goldman Sachs mentioned something to the effect that 300 million jobs will be affected in the next few years, in terms of this. Not eliminated, but affected. And so that's a siren call for all of us to really get on this bandwagon and get smart about how it is we focus our organizations on the right training, the right time to get done. Look, what I've really enjoyed working with you and the team over at DevSkiller is that you guys have embraced this notion and basically have shown how it is when you can move from a jobs-based hierarchical type of legacy organization into a skills-based, highly agile and nimble organization where people are described by the skills and the levels of proficiency they have across the entire breadth of what it is they do. That opens up a whole new world, a molecular DNA of data, if you will, that you can then apply to literally every aspect of the employee journey, from recruitment to onboarding, personalized onboarding, to goal setting, to then basically doing a quick analysis as to what you know and what you're capable of versus what job you have and what you're meant to do. This is my hand-driven spider graph, and figuring out very quickly how to create development plans that sync you up as quickly as possible with your current role. But then you might want to go explore other roles as well, and you got to figure out how that sync is ultimately going to work. Creating sort of what I call a performance development infinity loop around this, using tools like DevSkiller that then kind of link performance gaps or skills gaps directly to learning management systems and kind of like groups of what do you call it, training portfolios, and says this is what you need to engage with at what time to go get something done. That basically is a much more data-driven, targeted approach to basically continuously skilling people to the degree that you need to in order to kind of keep competitive. So that would be my very quick whistle-stop tour on that.
Yep, very interesting. I just wanted to share something actually with everybody now before I forget. We've prepared actually an ebook on the topic of today's webinar, which is Reskilling and Upskilling Strategies in the Digital Age. So a lot of what we're going to discuss today is actually contained within an ebook. It's free. You can click on that link there and download it. It's stacked with a lot of information that we're going to cover throughout today's session. So thank you very much for that, Jeff. And we'll keep it rolling right along. I'll bring this one to you now, Arnold, sitting there patiently waiting for your first question. So shifting gears a little bit about continuous learning. So we're talking about building a culture of continuous learning. And the question I have here is, what are some successful strategies you've seen for fostering a culture of continuous learning within organizations?
Thanks, Justin. Well, I think that in order for a strategy to work and to bolster this culture where people are engaged in continuous learning and they embrace learning, it often starts with the leadership. They should set the tone, right? And I would say think of it as a dance party. So if the DJ isn't grooving, neither will the dancers, right? So the leaders should promote this learning as a core value, but not only just promote, but they should be able to live it. So what they preach, they showcase. They day-to-day operations, they show what they mean by learning. And also another very important element is that the organization must make sure that the resources are available, and they are available at all levels, so people can tap in and can go for it and be able to access those resources. And I would like to bring a couple of examples from different organizations. For example, Google, what they do is that they encourage their workforce to spend around 20% of their time on projects where they are passionate about. And they reported that, for example, Gmail and AdSense, they all came out from these 20% times. And if you ask me, those are pretty good return on investment, right? Or there is also there's also JP Morgan. They have a database which is called the Academy, and there they provide courses to their employees where they can tap in. Usually these range from finance to analytics, but they are free of charge, and employees can go and learn at their own time on topics which they are interested in, which is another powerful tool. And lately I've read about LinkedIn, which I found really interesting because they do this live learning where employees can access courses and live trainings, but these are all done by their peers. And what is fascinating about that is they not only learn a new topic, but they can also collaborate. They can also network. How fascinating is that? How brilliant that you can network while you are learning and you meet your peers. It raises the morale. It raises your what you learn and how you approach things within your organization. So I think there are things which are certainly requiring an investment, but companies can come up with ideas that can be cost efficient as well, but still have the desired impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think plenty of times throughout the webinars that we do here at DevSkilling, we talk about continuous learning and how it has to be a top-down approach. It doesn't really work as use the analogy there of the dance floor with the DJ and the dancers, but it really has to come from upper management for it to work all the way down to the individual employee level. Not to mention the knock-on effects of providing these learning opportunities, helping boost retention and so on and so forth. And then talking about the expense of hiring and stuff like that. This is of critical importance, absolutely. So thank you for those insights there and those mentions of those other companies there as well. Very interesting. So I am going to launch our second poll, which will actually be our final poll for today, as we are going to enter into the topic of AI. I'm sure you all were expecting it to come. So this poll here is about the AI impact on skill requirements. So question here is, how do you think AI will impact the future of skill requirements in your industry? Automation of routine tasks, creation of new job roles, increased demand for AI literacy, enhanced decision-making and efficiency, shift in skill priorities towards soft skills, job displacement and loss, skills gap widening, or other. Very consciously, we included options here, both on the positive and negative side of AI, because we actually, part one of this series, we talked about generative AI and its impact on the digital workforce landscape. We touched both points about where this technology is actually heading towards and the impact on everyone's jobs. So I have the exact same number of people who voted last time. So, there we go, one more. Let's see if we can beat it. We beat it. Very good. But there are still a few of you here who can vote. So I'll give it a few seconds longer. Very interesting mixed bag here. Okay, looks like that's it. I'm going to end the poll, share the results on your screen. Question was, how do you think AI will impact the future of skill requirements in your industry? If I'm not mistaken, there was a split for first place. So automation of routine tasks with 33%, enhanced decision-making and efficiency with 33%. And we also had votes 11% for creation of new job roles, increased demand for AI literacy, and shift in skill priorities towards soft skills. But interesting, nothing on the negative side. So nothing for job displacement, loss and skills that way. So we have a very optimistic audience today, which is good to see. Okay, we'll stop the poll there, and I'm going to bring it over to our AI expert Jeff Bosted. So can we ask this next question to you here about AI and automation? So what strategies can businesses adopt to integrate AI and adoption while ensuring effective reskilling and retention of human talent?
Yeah, another big area. Look, I mean, it's really interesting. I attended a webinar last night held by KPMG. It's often kind of fascinating, kind of sitting around listening to the big dogs talk big time strategy for large enterprise organizations. So I appreciate this. Doesn't necessarily resonate with everybody, but nonetheless, what was a really good point that was brought up by their learning and development principal was the fact that, look, don't go plunging and running straight to shiny new technology simply for the sake of technologies, because everybody's screaming down the hall, oh my God, AI is here, AI is here. What are we going to do? Let's buy AI. It's like, it's a lot more complicated than that. He said, stop, listen, like anything else, especially with technology, what problem are you solving for first? Understand that, right? Is this about kind of making the workflows more efficient, improving supply chain and manufacturing? Is this about upskilling your people and just giving them a bit of a co-pilot, basically, so they can spend less time staring at a blank screen and creating things from scratch until their foreheads bleed, and actually more time just kind of using a tool that says, hey, I'm working on this thing. What suggestions might you have? And then boom, things pop up and you're like, oh my God, that's brilliant. That's like 5 things I totally didn't even think to capture. And then you could just spend time drilling down and playing with it. It's a load of fun. And it really then acts like a brilliant kind of co-pilot for us. So start with the problem first. Fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve for. Is this about the jobs? Is this about the workflows and the efficiency issues? Is this about creativity and drive? What is it you're trying to solve for? And then basically you can then start to take a look at tools basically that can really kind of help lift and shift the difficulties that you're having with these things, and hopefully kind of quash those problems at speed, which is really exciting. And do so in a measured way. There's no reason why you need to go out and have 100% engagement and adoption with AI right away. This is always ever a learning experience, as much, believe it or not, as it is for the AI industry. They're learning every day too, and their models are getting trained and becoming better and more accurate every day. So everything is shifting and it's tricky. So what you want to do is obviously make sure that the problems you're solving for at a small scale first are the ones that actually are going to benefit the most from an AI injection, if you will. And that's then a terrific opportunity, frankly, to plug people into training and to kind of get them up to speed. So that would be my 2 cents on that, Justin.
Yep, I was just fetching a link as you mentioned there, because you mentioned this KPMG webinar, which actually we are going to feature in one of our upcoming newsletters. If you aren't aware, we have a weekly newsletter called Talent Tech Weekly. There's a link there. We'll actually highlight that one, I would say, probably next week, as the webinars in the essay. So we'll be including insights there from that webinar. It's very, very interesting there. I also had some statistics I wanted to add here in relation to AI, kind of on either side of the coin. So we have, first of all, from the World Economic Forum, over the next 5 years, 23% of global jobs will change due to industry transformation, with the potential to add 4.4 trillion in productivity gains. That's courtesy of Coursera. And Coursera also just the report that we actually published, which will be out in tomorrow's newsletter. Of course, they published earlier this year, Generative AI for Everyone garnered 43,000 learners in its first week. So I think this, what we're alluding to here about the continuous learning, upskilling, and the impact of these two technologies is very evident when you can see it in hard numbers that are being published from these big players like Coursera and Statista and what have you. So very interesting stuff. I'm going to, thanks for that again, Jeff. So I'm going to bring this over to you, Arnold, this next question here about implementing reskilling programs. You alluded to a couple of examples before in your previous answer, but the question here is, could you provide examples of how companies have implemented reskilling programs that have directly contributed to business growth?
Right. I think there are plenty of examples, especially lately. You see more and more surfacing. And maybe one of the first example I want to mention, most people have heard about, not only because they invested one of the largest sum money out there, but also because they are well-known players. So for example, IBM, they are like the shining stars in the corporate skies. They invested more than $1 billion for upskilling and reskilling some of their employees. And these are focusing on emerging technologies. Jeff already mentioned a lot about AI and cloud computing. And what's fascinating is that they could already report as an outcome significant changes in their revenue stream on these sectors where the trainings are focusing on. And they are not the only ones. Like I think Amazon is also quite recently, they are introducing a program for Upskilling 2025, they titled it. And in these programs, there are also over $500 million investments to upskill their workforce. And they are trying to train them on more higher skilled roles and like practically tech roles. And you can sort of like imagine that they are turning your delivery guys into like tech ninjas. So they will be able to do different roles that might be replaced or done by a different workforce. So those are all great to see. If I think about the financial sector and banking, I know that Bank of America is quite good on that, and they have some reskilling initiatives called Pathways, if I'm not mistaken, and they are focusing on skills like tech, leadership, and project management for their workforce in order to be able to more to be more competitive and go with the flow, so to say, and the recent trends within the market. Yeah, maybe those 3 examples at the moment, but we can extend them.
And if I could just, Justin, if I could just jump in here really quick, because Arnold sparked something in my mind about the power, the commercial impact, if you will, of being able to upskill and reskill. We are so used to legacy organizations basically going down the typical path of saying, we're going to start to sunset these products over here. We're going to get rid of these 5 products. And everybody who's ever worked on them, from product initiation all the way through to sales and marketing and support and thereafter, we're probably going to have to let them go, right? Because they were kind of married to this stuff. What we are going to do is going to because we've looked at the market and we're going to shift competitively to kind of compete in a slightly different way with new tools. And so we're going to have to hire a bunch of new people basically to do that, because there's no way, of course, we would ever know, if these people over here could actually do these jobs over here. And with a tool and with a skills-based, kind of ontological approach that like a dev skiller would provide, that is one of the huge fixes, right, for organizations. And this is only going to accelerate, right? Businesses are going to go through so much transformation. There will be mergers and acquisitions and consolidations of entire markets everywhere over the course of the next, from here on out. And that issue of being able to upskill and reskill people to then migrate over here, not everybody's going to make that journey. I get that, but a lot of them will, and basically will enjoy the fact that they're going to embrace a whole new set of capabilities, which frankly only makes them much more attractive to other markets as well, and frankly pay increases. So that can save companies trillions across the globe, right? As well as enhance the the kind of portfolio and knowledge and experience and capability of employees at the same time. So it's a huge win.
Yep. I'll add a little bit to that, because what we call it here at DevSkiller is as is to be. So we talk about the skills that the workforce has today as versus the skills that we need for tomorrow. And I mentioned this Coursera job skills report that we're publishing tomorrow, but a couple of tidbits here about the different skills in different areas. So leading the way in business skills, digital marketing. This is where a lot of the skills, as obviously Gabriella knows all too well, that digital marketing is where the biggest number of people in the business sector are needing to sort of reskill and upskill. Interestingly, data visualization is another one. The statistic they quote here is 70% of employees expected to use data visualization by 2025. So as you can imagine, data storytelling, visualization, also a big part of what we do in marketing as well. Another big thing here. And then on the tech side, or the technology side, AI, obviously, and cybersecurity are taking center stage in the technology realm. So when we talk about these reskilling or successful reskilling and upskilling programs, it's critical that we're not talking about the skills today or tomorrow. It could be potentially the skills that we need in a year, 5 years, or something like that. So this is why it's really important to keep your ear to the ground with these sorts of reports and stuff like that. So it's very interesting stuff. we are going to bring it back to you, Gabriella, as I mentioned there, but I want to tap into, you mentioned before that you're a pracademic, so I want to tap in a little bit to your academia background here. We talk about education and education's role in reskilling and upskilling. So the question here is, what role do external partners such as educational institutions and online platforms play in supporting reskilling and upskilling efforts?
Thank you for the question, Justin. I think that there is much more scope for educational providers to partner up with the industry and provide opportunities for upskilling, reskilling for existing staff in organizations. There are initiatives, and I have been working with some of these, one in the US, one in the UK, of partners of universities that deliver short specialist courses, for example, specializing in data analytics or specializing in digital marketing in order to upskill their existing staff. So these courses are attended usually by employees of organizations all over the world, because of course, yes, it depends also how renowned the university is that's offering the certificate or the short course. These employees usually are lacking the technological skills or the digital skills to work with new software, or a lot of the times students come from a pure marketing background and they're managers, right, marketing managers, and suddenly they need to now overview also a digital wing of the business. So they need to have the know-how of what software, for example, the staff would work with and what insights the software can offer. And they need to have this understanding of the new digitalized marketing world, for instance. But the same goes for all other aspects of education in digital skills. Yes, there are some initiatives of universities, but they're, I would say, unfortunately, quite slow to adjust to the business needs. But hopefully we will see more of these programs. There are also initiatives from government. For instance, in the UK, we have apprenticeships programs that are sponsored by the government. That again are meant to upskill the workforce. But of course, it takes time. It can't be done from today to tomorrow. So definitely there is much more scope for universities to collaborate with businesses and provide opportunities, also flexible opportunities. These two examples I'm talking about in the US and the UK, offering certificates and short courses. They're fairly flexible in their structure. So if students can't attend the live session, they can watch the recording, and there are lots of materials to support of course, the students' development online. Thank you.
Yeah. I was just about at that point about digital learning. I mean, it's so different now to even when I was at university. Like it wasn't possible to just go and catch a lecture online or watch a recording or something like that. It's much more flexible now, making it a lot easier for people to really learn new skills from great institutions like the ones that you work for, which is awesome stuff. So thanks very much for that, Gabriella. So I am going to bring this back to you, Arnold. Here, the question here is about measuring success and key metrics, which also I think there was a question I saw it come through in the Q&A. So we may kind of answer this as we go along as well. We might come back to that one at the end. Also, I'd like to encourage everybody, if you do have any questions for the panelists, that Q&A is starting to fire up a little bit. So drop them in there if you have any questions for our panelists. We've got time saved at the end for that. However, Arnold, the question here I have for you is, how can organizations measure the success of their reskilling and upskilling initiatives, and what metrics should they be tracking?
Right. So it ties back nicely to what Gabriella was outlining, that it's one thing to have the right resources available to tap into and for people to access those courses which are relevant and tailored for them. However, measuring success or using metrics, that's a little bit more challenging, especially when it comes to skills that are sort of like require a shift in culture or require a shift in people's mindset, because they always take a lot longer. And it isn't just about how many training courses you had, or the number of PowerPoint slides won't cut it. So there are certain metrics that can be used, which could be helpful to gauge what's the efficiency of those trainings, or in what direction those employees are heading to. And I would like to call out three, and some of them are widely used as well. So the first one, I think which is very often used, is the employee performance improvement, where organizations look at the previous quarters or half years, depending on how frequent they measure their employees. And they compare those results to the results after an improvement course or a workshop, and they try to see in what elements the people who attended those trainings fare, or in what way they are moving. Or another very interesting one is the retention rate, because they're tying it back directly to employee satisfaction, just to look at how it helps retaining their best talents, or the people who are willing to go on those courses or willing to be reskilled or upskilled. So that can be another metrics to be used. And the third one, which is very popular with Deloitte, is the tracking of the number of promotions within the same sector. So once they run an upskilling or reskilling program within a department, they tend to see what's the evolution within the next year, next 2 years, depending on their cycles, in terms of promotees from the department. There is one more thing which is not widely accepted, or it's very difficult to measure, and it's not really tangible, but I think it's interesting to think about it, and that is the sort of like a fun metrics, which is like the smile rate. And when I read it, I was like, this is actually very interesting. So companies could also sort of like ask, and this is more like on the leadership positions, whether your employee has a smile to offer. So let's say if you walk by an employee, or if you meet them in the cafeteria, or whenever they enter a meeting, do they have the capacity to smile? It's a small thing, and it's not tangible, like it's very difficult to measure, but that can be a good indication whether your program, and in this case reskilling or upskilling, but also in other programs, whether that has a positive impact on employee morale, employee satisfaction, the direction they are heading to. So maybe just as a back burner, you can keep it in mind, and if that ever comes, just to try to see if your employee has a smile to offer.
Yeah, that very interesting one there. It's as you said, probably hard to quantify, but it is a good parameter to see if people are happy at their work. I thought we might stay just on the topic here a little bit, because we've kind of touched on it. Jeff, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything here about this Q&A question here about ROI. What I was just going to say, some of the metrics that you mentioned there, Arnold, would be a very good place to start with some of the ways to measure ROI. But Jeff, I'm bringing it back to you, because we actually talked about this, I believe, on the last webinar. So I was wondering if maybe you could add a little bit here before we move on. Is that possible?
Look, there are definitely, thanks for that, Justin. There are a lot of different areas where ROI can come in. I mean, and this stuff is a little bit intangible, but it is measurable in terms of looking at some of the more traditional HR metrics, as an example. So attrition rate, right? The voluntary attrition, losing good people who voluntarily choose to leave. If, as I kind of work in the tech sector, so oftentimes one of the top, 5 motivators is around my own personal development and my own progression from a career perspective. How is it I'm feeling that I'm being lifted up, so that even if I don't stay at this place, from a career and progression perspective, I will become more attractive, right, to other organizations. That's a real kind of like driver for folks. And if you are giving people the opportunity to meet new challenges, to stretch what they know, and to, in some cases, kind of learn entirely new aspects of their role in relation, especially to new technologies. It's often the case where people might feel a bit anxious and a bit nervous about doing that. Gosh, what if I don't get this stuff? To suddenly, kind of after a couple of 3 sessions, feeling like, wow, this is not nearly so complicated as I thought it would be. And now I understand what it is. It's demystified. And now I'm actually able to kind of dive in. The level of attrition typically drops dramatically, voluntary attrition anyway, drops dramatically in that regard when people are feeling like, I don't need to leave to continue to learn new things and to prepare myself for a new career move. So that's one area of ROI. The other is what I've already talked about, which is this notion of how do we, using metadata that would be generated from a skills-based approach, help us at the leadership level, at the board level, to kind of understand what commercial drivers, will now be enhanced by the talent inventory that we suddenly have available to us. That is a huge leap, demystifying and shining a light finally on what was oftentimes the most mysterious asset on our books, which also covered 75 to 80% of the balance sheet, people, is super, super powerful, right? So whatever we can do, obviously, to kind of shine a light on that, make sense of who they are, what they know, where they're located, at what level, and then link that directly to commercial, imperatives and drivers to say, do we have the folks that can actually get us there, and in what time frame, and at what cost? Wow, I mean, that's a huge level of efficiency that just frankly doesn't often exist these days. So that's another huge ROI. I mean, in the millions, possibly billions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I add on that because obviously it's close to what we do here at upskill, and having the capabilities to identify this. I mean, in terms of measuring ROI, if you have the capability of measuring the skills that you have, identifying the skill gaps and filling the skill gaps, and having, as you said, that metadata to be able to track all of that and say, okay, we were here and now we're here, that this gap is shortening, or just to use your hand analogy, that we're fully met, basically. So that's also another way you can definitely look at these things with the help of a tool like DevSkillers. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Jeff, and thank you, Arnold, as well for your answer there previously as well. We do have some more questions in Q&A, but we'll get back to them towards the end. I just wanted to stay on that topic because we're kind of close to the topic of ROI there. So staying with you, Jeff, we're going to talk about changing role requirements due to technology, obviously particularly with AI and these sorts of things. So the question here is, how should businesses approach reskilling in roles that may eventually be phased out due to technological advancements?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big worry about folks, right? There's a lot of fear mongering out there that AI is going to take over the world. It's going to create existential threats against humanity generally, and things of that nature. And I can assure you that we're not anywhere close to that happening anytime soon, quite yet. It does have the model and the concepts behind it, right? If they are allowed to run amok and without guardrails and everything else, yeah, eventually one day certainly will pose major issues. One of the early concerns around this stuff is job replacement. And what I hear over and over again from some of the biggest gurus in the AI world is, look, AI is not here to replace your job necessarily. It will, on the other hand, you will be replaced by people who know how to use AI. And so what I would say to folks is, look, embrace this stuff, dive into it. You don't need to know everything there is to know about the complicated models that basically, you have at your fingertips. What you need to know is what these things can help you solve for, how they can help you ideate, how they can help you think outside the box and kind of go new directions with things. And it's dead easy. That's the whole point of these large language models, is that you're basically using natural language to kind of input information into it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The move now is from just using your everyday kind of common, large language model platforms into turning these things into what they call agents. And what do I mean by that? Take a process like marketing, okay, in your organization. Oftentimes, it's a lot of ideation, it's a lot of digital creation, it's a lot of, this kind of thing. If you had a tool that basically knows your product cold, knows your competitive market landscape cold, knows what your pricing is potentially against those markets, all of that stuff can be uploaded immediately into AI, into a model. It can then go away and start to self-generate all sorts of fascinating new illustrations and wonderful marketing pieces and really interesting stuff, and release that on a regular basis. Same is true for sales development representatives giving you a call. I am now called 3 times a week by robots. And I have to say, a couple of times, it's scary how bloody real they sound. And the responses are really spot on. So people are now kind of like diving wholesale into these typically labor heavy types of roles and saying, we can have bots to go do that stuff, because the responsiveness, the accuracy, and frankly, the intelligence behind these things is starting to get to the point where it's indistinguishable from human behavior, to be perfectly honest. And the data it can collect at speed, and then kind of assimilate and then provide analytics for, is fascinating. So It's going to be areas where there's a high volume of low paid roles that are typically kind of out there trying to kind of paint the world and sort things out. Customer service, right? Sales development roles, marketing, content, and digital, kind of like outreach, these kinds of things. Don't panic, Gabriella. I'm saying you still need a brain, behind all of this stuff to kind of like manage it. It's starting to happen in HR in terms of bots that can kind of answer pretty much any question as they're plugged into every HR tool. And so any employee can access this stuff 24/7, ask it a question, and not only will it give it a solid answer about what it knows internally, but also what the internet knows about a particular problem they have, it can actually go away and perform tasks for you. So all of this is coming. And so I would say we're not at a place where all these jobs are going to be replaced necessarily, but it is starting to happen in certain areas. In tech development as well, software development is also an area that people are experimenting with, but it ain't perfect, mate. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't have people who are educated about this stuff and can unpick it and say, ooh, that's wrong, we got to fix that, we got to tune that. That is sort of the upskilling challenge, is how do you get people to supervise these tools and to kind of understand how to make them better? So sorry.
Yeah, work together with them. Yeah, but very well put. Arnold, thanks for that, Jeff. Arnold, do you have anything to add on this one here?
So that was very, very good. I could go on listening to that, Jeff. So fantastic. Maybe just quickly on from another perspective. So for roles that are inevitably on the chopping block, yeah, they're going to be roles. But I think what is important is to have a strategy, focus on things like transferable skills. Also encourage your employees to learn new skills that are not so likely to be obsolete in the near future. Do problem solving skills, do emotional intelligence, do tech literacy. So there's a lot that's going on, we're all aware of, but there's also approaches which can help you to go from A to B in a smooth way. So a very banal example could be a cashier. We all see what is happening in supermarkets and hypermarkets. All the cashiers are replaced with self-checkout, but there is an element of customer service. They could be an excellent customer agent because they are dealing with customers on a daily basis, but in a different setup. So just focus on those skills.
Yeah, very much working alongside rather than being put off and afraid of stealing a job. Figure out how you can work alongside. Because as you both alluded to, it's not going anywhere. So, thank you very much, both of you, for those answers. Okay, we actually are at our final question for today. Before we jump into those Q&A questions, we're talking about Outlook here, and I'll start with you, Gabriella. For you. So looking ahead, what emerging skills do you foresee becoming essential in the next 5 to 10 years as digital transformation continues to evolve?
Thank you very much for that. Well, clearly from emerging as a result from all of our discussion so far, it will be digital related skills. I would say one key skill would be how to work with data. And of course, the software that analyze data, big data, but not only social media data emerging from websites such as Google Analytics platforms and similar ones. So I would say data literacy, understanding how to interpret, analyze, leverage data is definitely key. But on the other hand side, it would also, taking this rationale a little bit further, cybersecurity awareness, yes, and having these skills of understanding what is happening and the changes and the attacks and the possible hacks. Is becoming vital. One of the things that I've noticed, organizations emphasize taking this course that's in a cybersecurity awareness course or security awareness course every year now, because so many things are changing. And again, talking about robots, automation, at the moment, there are also so many frauds, that are going on. Your voice can be copied, so people need to be aware of this. I think there was a case actually of fraud at a very high level, an organization handing over millions to someone they believed was a partner they needed to pay. I can't remember exactly who it was now. but because it seems so legitimate. So as workers, it's really important to know where these threats come from, and to report them, to recognize them. They're changing all the time, and they're becoming smarter. So it's really important to stay on top of this. But of course, also, right, soft skills will be very important. And I would say employers will be looking increasingly more for people who have the tech know-how, right? And also be able to communicate these skills. One of these jobs, I would give as an example, are the systems analysts, right? That need to have an understanding of programming, but also of the business requirements. They need to have really good skills of translating the business requirements for the programmers and vice versa. So these jobs that need both hard technical skills as well as soft skills, I would say will be most in demand in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. I would add on top of that you made some good points, that the sort of the waves of different things. Obviously, we're in this AI wave at the moment. But before that, there was this DevOps wave, the data wave, and now it's like we're using how we can use AI to sort of ramp up some of these things that have already been coming, but then keeping the human touch involved with it. So hit the nail on the head right there. Jeff, I wanted to know if you could maybe sign us off on this outlook topic here.
Yeah, can you do me a favor? Just kind of reframe it again for me real quick, Justin.
Yeah, basically the essential skills over the next 5 to 10 years that will, in the face of digital transformation. So what are the emerging skills?
Yeah, so I guess what it really comes down to, and it's interesting, both Arnold and Gabriella have kind of covered some of this stuff off. It's going to be your human effectiveness skills for sure. You never ever want to kind of lose focus on that stuff, because especially in the age of AI, there's going to be a lot more kind of robot interactions, if you will, or bot interactions. People will tire of that because they know they're not speaking to a real human. So they're losing the connection to classic empathy, to understanding, to emotional intelligence. And they're seeking, guidance. They're seeking nurturing. They're seeking coaching, mentorship, these kinds of things. You need to be dead good at that stuff always, right? So that's one thing. From a more technical perspective, again, let me make clear, using AI is a hell of a lot easier than any work you've ever done in your entire life. Yeah, there's lots of complicated stuff that sits in the background. You don't need to know about it. All you need to do is know how to write a decent prompt. And I could teach you that in about half a minute, right? It's just so bloody easy. So once you actually start playing with this stuff, what you do realize is it's the quality of how you put words together, which means you have to have a slightly analytical mindset in terms of understanding and loving and embracing the problems that you're trying to solve for, the challenges that you're trying to solve for. So once you understand those things, you need to almost have sort of a consultant's mindset to say, great, okay, hey, computer, you're going to take on this role. Here's what I need from you. I'm trying to solve for X, Y, and Z, and I'm trying to kind of make sense of this. And here are a couple of examples of things, frankly, that I think you should probably consider. Now, here's the format that I need the information shared back to me. And if you could do me a favor, put some kind of a cheeky tone to it, because I don't want it to be too stubborn or formal, or whatever the case. Click. Boom, it comes back to you and really kind of helps you think things through. But you'll get much better responses and much more engaging activity if you're more analytical in your thinking, you're considered in how it is you write these things out. You take a bunch of light courses like LinkedIn Learning, and Coursera, there are loads of them out there, and they're cheap as chips. Get up to speed about how to kind of engage and work with AI. And then basically you start to kind of go down all sorts of different interesting paths that might interest you about the different aspects of AI. So the analytical problem solving, thinking a bit like an analyst, and being really considered and concise in terms of the instructions you give the computer will all help you basically really embrace this and have a wonderful experience of it.
Thank you very much for that. I wanted to add one last thing before we jump to the Q&A. It was a couple of webinars ago. I can't remember who exactly we had on, but it was a senior. I remember it was Robert too. I was working with a senior software developer, really senior person, who said, AI isn't at the stage right now that it could replace my job, and probably never really could, because I'm at this level where it's the AI just simply can't do. But I'd hate to be my counterpart same level of experience as me, who's using AI while I'm not using AI. So basically, it's you're hampering yourself if you just kind of continue to keep the blinders on and not sort of work alongside with AI. And I think that really ties it well on what we're talking about here with human skills and adopting with the technologies as it advances further and further. So thank you very much for those answers there, Gabriella and Jeff. I do have one question here. I thought there were two, but it must be only one. I know there's a couple coming through. Just a comment here from Sunny. Thanks for interesting response there, Jeff. I believe this question probably from Trevor would be best for you, Gabriella, if that's okay. The question here is, do you have any experience of experiential learning? One of the speakers mentioned the example of peer learning in teams. So Gabriella, if you feel comfortable, would you mind taking this one?
Yes, sure. What we are trying to do, and especially with the courses that I've managed and developed, is to make them as practical as possible. So firstly, we were looking into developing them together with the employers, and then getting students to work on real life projects rather than just working on a case study or exams, right? They would be either working in groups or individually on live briefs. So actually solving a problem. Yes, usually the challenge here would be to solve just one little problem for the employer, whereas they would like lots of problems solved. Of course, especially in marketing or digital marketing courses, is to make sure that students engage with the software in a meaningful manner. Not they just so that lots of universities teach them, okay, well, there are these tools, the following tools, so they're aware of a list. But we would go deeper and getting students to work with real data in Google Analytics, for example, or in Hootsuite with real data from social media on behalf of a particular company. So yes, it's all about that immersive experience of putting yourself in the shoes of the business. And that what I tell my students is they need to work on building a portfolio for potential employers, even if they work right for these short courses or certificates that they do in digital marketing or data analytics. You need to build a portfolio that you can showcase to your potential employer, right? You may want to move jobs, or even to your existing employer to show them, well, I've done this in the course and now I'm capable of managing a team, yes, or whatever you can use that portfolio for, either in the company that you work for or to move jobs, because that's the reality today, as we don't tend to stay in a job very long, unfortunately, yes. But that's how you tend to move up the ladder. Yes, it's about, it's experiential in the sense that students work with, or they should work, right, as much as possible with real cases, real software, real data. So I hope that answers the question in a nutshell. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very well. Thank you very much, Gabriella. I've got to mention Google Analytics to do a pretty good job of using dummy data anyway. When you do their Google Analytics courses, they have that all pre-built in there. So even if you can't get your hands on real data, I'm pretty sure a lot of these platforms now are pretty much providing it as close to the real thing anyway.
Exactly.
So,
Sorry to interrupt you, Justin. I just wanted to add one thing from a learning perspective. Okay, universities tend to be a bit let's say stingy with spending money on accessing software. So very often you need to work as an educator with free versions of software. The problem is, just talking about social media analytics software, there used to be so many software where you could try the software without having to log in to leave details, right? But now it's becoming more complicated to access. So you need to sign up with the social media software provider, and then you get access to a trial, which is usually very short. So it just literally gives you a very brief taste as a student. So I think there would be much more scope there, again, to collaborate with educators and ensure that there is the infrastructure there, because also on the courses that I worked on, right, with these universities in the US, in the UK, on the certificates, the problem was students still couldn't access more than data or the software than more for than just a trial, which is a bit annoying in a sense.
Yeah, no, there's scope for improvement there for sure. You have some of these freemium accounts and stuff like that where you have kind of a stripped back version, but there's scope definitely for cooperation there with organizations and learning or software providers and learning institutions to make this possible. So very good point there. We are almost perfectly on time. It is 1 minute to our scheduled end time. So I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank everybody for joining us for today's session. Those of you who have listened to us on LinkedIn and those of you in Zoom. As I said at the top of today's webinar, this is actually part 2 of our NextGen Workforce Series. So part 1 is already available on YouTube. This webinar will be available on YouTube very, very soon as well. Tomorrow, as I said, the recording will be coming and the registration page and LinkedIn event will be going live today for part 3, which is actually in a couple of weeks on October 10th. So keep an eye on for that. We'll also be sending an invitation to that. First of all, thank you for all of that. And last but not least, thank you to our panelists. So thank you, Jeff, thank you, Arnold, and thank you, Gabriella, for your insights shared today. Really interesting stuff. There are some links in the chat as I shared before for some of the content that we discussed, which you can use to follow up on today's webinar. But yes, thank you once again and see you all next time. Thank you, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.